Hey all, and welcome back to another WTF episode where we give you updates on cases we have already covered or cases that are currently unfolding in the media.
These episodes are going to drop Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. So make sure you smash that subscribe button and follow button so you never miss an episode.
We're your hosts. I'm Jackie.
And I'm Sam. Today, we're going to go over Suzanne Morphew's autopsy as well as the updated charges in the Madeline Soto case.
What the fuck happened to Suzanne Morphew? On Tuesday's episode, we covered Suzanne's disappearance and eventual discovery of her body 40 miles south of where she lived and was last known to be in Salida, Colorado. If you haven't listened to Suzanne's episode, we highly suggest you do before listening to this update. So, the autopsy was finally released, and while it did confirm what the police and most of the public has speculated for years, her death was ruled homicide. It was ruled a homicide by unspecified means in the setting of, and y'all, I'm gonna do my best to pronounce these, but they're hard. So, butorph-
Butorphanol.
butorphanol, asparone, and
Zaparone.
azaparone, sorry,
Yeah.
and I just said this perfectly before we got back on here. Metatomidine?
Yeah.
Intoxication. And wouldn't you know it, those are the exact compound of chemicals found in the garage of the Morphew house. You know, the same chemicals Barry told detectives he used to load his own tranquilizer darts with to shoot deer and take his antlers.
Yeah. Crazy that those are the exact same things in tranquilizer darts. Huh.
So interesting. So that I was also surprised that they had collected 3 large bags of bones, and it included her skull, both femurs, multiple ribs, and her sternum. Along with this, they collected wood and rock samples from the site, and I'm interested to see what those bring back as well. Wondering if we're going to get anything from the Morphew residence mixed in with where she was found.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't expect them to find that much of her with it being a shallow grave and 3.5+ years
Yeah.
for animals to scavenge. It just, I was expecting a lot less than that.
To be fair, this is exactly what happened in that podcast he listened to.
Yeah, oddly enough, we're really aligning with that.
That's crazy.
It really is.
Mm.
So now on to what they found with her remains. Because I was surprised by only a couple things that they found. Most of it we figured they would. So, of course, they found her port for her cancer treatments.
Mm-hmm.
They found part of a padded bra. They found torn green Nike tank top, Yeti shorts, and a hoodie labeled Crested Butte, which is a mountain town in Colorado.
Yeah.
And a fabric fragment. And that's all the description that they would give for that piece. But what really caught me off guard was one pink and light colored work glove, a pale patterned balaclava, which I had to Google because I knew what that word was, but I didn't, like, I recognized the word, but I couldn't remember, like, what it was. I knew it was a fabric of clothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ski mask.
Hmm.
What? A ski mask.
Yeah.
Why do we have a ski mask found with her remains?
In May.
In May, in Colorado. Okay. And then there was a weathered bullet. So it doesn't specify whether the bullet was spent or not. It just specifies a weathered bullet.
Oh, like the one that was in her bedroom?
Yeah, they don't say if it's a 22 or not, but they do just say a weathered bullet. But I'm going to assume that my thought process of he went to load a gun and dropped a bullet and it rolled under the bed and he didn't want to go after it might hold some merit there.
Not many bullets are weathered, to be fair.
I'm also wondering if this is allegedly in my opinion, I'm wondering if he shot her outside the house on the property and that weathered bullet is there because as her body decomposed and everything, it just ended up in the dirt with her remains because there was no exit for the bullet in her.
Yeah.
Which
well, they didn't have
got what there.
Yeah. They also didn't have, like, they said there was no soft tissue on any of the bones. It was just bones.
Yes.
So I think that was why they couldn't figure out
Yeah,
the bullet part.
they just know that it is homicide by the chemicals that happened with her, and toxicology also really hasn't been released in there. But I mean, the toxicology is released, we still don't have the public report for it. The family's seen it and other people have seen it. So, of course, Barry's lawyers are back with their statement
Of course.
because they were very gung ho a few months before her body was found about how there was blinders on about Barry,
Mm-hmm.
and if the police would just quit looking for where they think Barry took her and disposed of her, they would really find her. So I'm going to go ahead and read you the statement for the lawyers representing Barry. And their names are Jane Barrelson and Iris Eaton, and they sent the following to 11 News. For the past 4 years, the Morphews have agonized over Suzanne's disappearance. This included not only the pain of the loss of their wife and mother, but also the false accusations and prosecution of Barry Morphew. The Morphews have prayed the authorities would remove their blinders and not only find Suzanne, but find the suspect responsible for her disappearance and murder. However, the Morphews are left with more questions than answers and a lack of justice for Suzanne. The family and the community on May 10, 2020, around 5 a.m., Barry Morphew went to work, driving approximately 160 miles north of the Morphew home for a job that had been planned for months. In 2020, investigators confirmed that Suzanne was a regular morning coffee drinker, and DNA testing done in 2020 confirmed that the half-finished cup of coffee left on the kitchen counter on May 10, 2020 was covered in her DNA only. The autopsy now also confirms that on the day she disappeared, Suzanne had her morning cup of coffee as shown by the caffeine in her toxicology report. The autopsy also confirms that she put on her mountain bike clothes and was either getting ready for or was already on her mountain bike ride when she was abducted, allegedly drugged, and buried 50 miles south of their home. Despite the fact that the unknown male DNA was found in Suzanne's car where her bike was parked on her bike grips, handlebars, and bike seat, the authorities will not tell the Morphew family whether Suzanne's bike clothes collected 7 months ago with her remains have been tested for DNA. DNA left on her clothing by the murderer could bring justice for Suzanne, her family, and the community. The authorities will also not provide the Morphews any information regarding whether they have performed any testing on the bullet that was collected with Suzanne's remains. The authorities offered the victims, Barry, Mallory, and Macy, the option to retrieve Suzanne's remains, but they want to ensure the suspect is apprehended before they take what could be an important piece of evidence in the suspect's prosecution. The family is quite skeptical about the integrity of this investigation, as the very same investigators that concealed the unknown male DNA continued to be involved in this investigation and were present at the autopsy for Suzanne Morphew. So, that is a lot of finger pointing.
Mm-hmm.
Still, like,
Yeah.
that is so much finger pointing. But this coffee mug and caffeine in the toxicology report, and that a cup of coffee was tested from that day. This is the first that I had heard of that. The coffee. We knew about the plate and the cutlery
Mm-hmm.
and the cup from the night before for the dinner for two that he supposedly cooked.
Yeah.
I went back through that autopsy, or back through the affidavit when this came out. We don't talk about that. So, to play both sides of this, did um the state omit that from the affidavit because we already had the third party DNA that came into play that made the prosecution drop charges against him without prejudice to charge him again. So could this be another thing that was omitted in the beginning to make it look more like Barry? Because you got to look at both sides. Or could we go with a completely logical stance on this? And that cup of coffee could have been from Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm an avid morning coffee drinker, and sometimes I have a cup of coffee in the afternoon. So that cup of coffee easily could have been from Saturday afternoon. She was laying out on the decks sun tanning. I'm like a
We
4-year-old. I
literally had
get
coffee
tired
at
at
your
night.
house last night at
Yeah,
9:30 at night.
yeah, you literally came over with coffee at like 8 o'clock at night last night. So I'm having a hard time believing that they can actually prove that cup of coffee
Yeah.
was from the 10th and it wasn't from the 9th or
Mm-hmm.
something else. We can't argue it's her DNA on it. That's fine. But you don't know when that coffee was poured and made.
Yeah. And also, okay, it's her house. Of course, if she's an avid coffee drinker, of course her DNA is going to be on it.
Do you know how many times I've opened up the microwave and there's a cup of coffee in there and I'm all, oh
Yeah.
shit, that's where that went. And it's from 2 days ago.
ADHD.
Yes, all the way. But it happens to me all the
Yeah.
time. So I just, yes, it's evidence, but I don't feel like it's a solid, hardcore piece of evidence that proves she was alive the morning of the 10th,
Yeah.
like Barry says.
I just feel like they're grasping
Yes.
at whatever they can.
Yeah, because it's getting close, Barry.
I just you been arrested?
No,
Oh,
we still have no charges. We just got the autopsy released because,
even with the tranquilizer information?
yeah, we still do not have any charges. I think because of what happened the first time with that third party DNA and them getting in there and the judge wanting to bar
Mhm.
witnesses, I think that they are just really making sure that they have everything. But also, like, this could be two different things. They could have a smoking gun and they are just piling it all and making sure it is good to go. Or they found something that changes things and
Mm.
they're not ready to say that yet.
That's fair. I just I don't know. There's too many coincidences.
Oh, for sure.
And like the ski mask. What?
Yeah, I am so intrigued about this ski mask
Yeah.
because not a mention of this anywhere. And also her clothing. Because
Yeah.
I thought that it was weird in the beginning when the clothing that he led them to in the closet in the bedroom was like her blue outfit. And during everything on the news while this case was unfolding, it was always about she always wore that blue outfit. And so I was reading the affidavit and I was like, well, it's really weird. That's the outfit in her closet. But
Mm-hmm.
they still did find her in hiking clothes.
I feel like I remember hearing something or seeing something that that Crested Butte hoodie that or sweater she was wearing, she only wore around the house. Like she
I do think I remember hearing about that back like during when it,
was all happening.
yeah,
Because you can see pictures of her
of
from
her
before
wearing,
in
yeah,
that
in that
hoodie.
hoodie at home.
Yeah. And if I know May weather here is bipolar to say the least.
It is. It could be 80 degrees or it could be 30 degrees and snowing.
Yeah, but I feel like I distinctly remember that weekend was sunny
Yeah, it
and
was really nice. She was outside suntanning on
yeah,
Saturday and laying
exactly.
out. And like when you're in the mountains, it's always cooler than when you're in Denver or in Colorado
Hmm.
Springs. So, we used to go up to the mountains in the fall time and it'd be September and it was like 80, 90 degrees down here in the springs. But when you got up and in the mountains, I was in a hoodie and leggings the whole time because you got that crisp, chill air
Yeah.
in the mornings and in the evenings that you just need a hoodie. So, this is still a very active investigation right
Hmm.
now, and authorities are asking anyone with information to either call or email them at the Morphew tip line, 719 or you can email at cdps underscore Suzanne Morphew underscore tipline at state.co.us. And we're going to have this link below in the description so you guys can access it. If anybody knows anybody from that time, you never know what could trigger your memory or
Hmm.
anything. So, hoping that someone has some information to help get justice for Suzanne. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah. What the fuck is going on with Stefan Stearns and his charges for Madeline Soto's murder and the child essay charges? We have not done an episode on Madeline yet, but we've been following very closely since day one. For those of you who are not familiar with Madeline, on February 26th at 8 p.m., 13-year-old Madeline Soto was reported missing after her mom, Jen Soto, called it in. She went to pick her up from school at 4:30 and found out she hadn't been in any of her classes yet. Madeline had been dropped off at a church from like across the street from the school at 8:30 by her mom's boyfriend, Stefan Stearns. After a series of very strange interviews from Madeline's mom and Stefan, and I mean strange interviews.
Like, these are really weird.
Yeah.
And we're going to link all the videos down below in the description for you guys, but we're just going to talk about them real quick.
Mhm. Oof. So the first one, her mom, is like talking to the camera and
It's
like,
a Zoom interview
oh, it was
with
Zoom,
like the
wasn't it,
Fox,
first?
I think it's Fox 35,
Something like that.
like KRDO 35. Um, it's a Zoom call
Yeah.
with him pacing in the background,
He's pacing in the back, and then finally he like sits like catty corner behind her in like the shadows, just staring.
just staring.
Yeah.
And that video later gets broken down by like a body language expert and was like,
It was creepy.
this is red flaggy
Yeah.
as hell.
And then the next one was actually like her very much in front of the camera with a news station and of her sitting there talking about everything. And she's like bouncing her body.
Like very like anxiety and like looking past the camera or like over the interviewer, not really making solid eye contact.
Yes.
And
And you hear something like talking in the background and like
it's like
screeching.
a parrot,
It's a
right?
parrot, but she like stopped and is like, just wait a second, and just like smiling about this bird.
And like laughing and chuckling about this bird, but then like goes back to zero emotion, like deadpan
Yeah.
talking about Madeline.
Yes. And then Stefan ended up being in that interview as well. And he was bawling,
Yeah,
like
like crying.
crying.
Meanwhile, Jen hasn't cried at all.
No.
And then we have in this, he randomly word vomits about accidentally factory resetting his phone the day she went missing.
What a coincidence. How do you can't accidentally reset your phone. You have to hit confirm
You have to
multiple
like really go
times.
through that.
Yeah. And then it takes
So
forever to actually reset.
it really does. But it just, the interviews were very weird and all around, and we were both very suspicious of the mom.
Oh, I still am.
Both of them, we're still very suspicious of the mom, but we were very suspicious from the beginning, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Someone get that bird. That bird knows what's
Oh
up.
my gosh, I want that bird so bad.
I hope they're interviewing the bird.
It gives me Pretty Little Liars vibes.
That's what I'm saying. The
I
bird
like it.
knows something. We rambled. I'm sorry. But the afternoon of Wednesday, February 28th, the Orange County Sheriff's Department had a press conference about Madeline. And then about 10 p.m. that evening, Stefan gets arrested for charges unrelated to her case, but he's now also the prime suspect in her disappearance. The charges he was arrested on were child pornography and child sex abuse material, all on his phone that he factory reset.
Yeah. Now the factory reset's making a little sense here.
Weird.
But we were all super surprised that none of this is in connection to Madeline's disappearance. These are just separate charges right now.
Yeah. On Friday, March 1st, a press conference was held where the police revealed they were confident that Madeline was dead. And she was never actually dropped off at the church parking lot like Stephen was claiming. Like Stefan was claiming. They had video footage of him discarding her school backpack and school issued laptop in dumpsters. And in that video, they believed that Maddie was already deceased in his truck. 3 hours after this press conference was held, Madeline Soto's body was found, and it was in a wooded area near where Stefan had gotten a flat tire on the 26th.
Oh, would you imagine that?
Weird, right?
That's suspicious.
Just a little bit. On March 12th, 60 more charges were announced for Stefan Stearns for content found on his phone of Maddie going back years. Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was totaling at least 400 pictures and videos. The charges and details will be linked below. Just a warning though, it's bad. Like, really bad. But
We didn't want to list and go through all the stuff that they had found just because just think of the worst things that you could find in that category
mhm,
and that's it.
absolutely. At this point though, Stefan was still not charged in her death.
Which is wild to me.
Yeah. But I mean, I know we were super suspicious of the mom. I personally was.
I knew that he definitely had something to do with it,
Mm-hmm.
but also I really still feel like the mom
She
is
knows.
involved. There's
She
no
knows.
way she doesn't know
For
anything.
years, there's no
For
way.
years, especially after this came out, I was like, there's no way.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about her in a
Yeah,
little bit.
we'll touch back. But finally, on April 24th, Stefan was finally charged with first-degree murder by a grand jury. But they wouldn't answer many questions because it's still an active and ongoing investigation. So, do you think we could be seeing charges for Jen Soto soon? Because she has basically disappeared since Stefan was arrested. Also, let's talk about Jen really quick.
Yeah.
We're touching back on her now.
Yeah.
Okay. There were 3 911 calls about Madeline being missing placed on February 26th, but not a single one of them was made by Jen.
None of them.
Not a single one. And also, but like in one of them, you can hear Jen being asked what Maddie was last seen wearing, and she had a hard time answering. Like she couldn't answer it.
And I want to touch on that part because it has gone back and forth that she did not see Maddie that morning before school. And then it changed to she saw Maddie getting dressed and ready for school that morning. But she's not sure what she was wearing.
Yeah.
And like the 911 calls are weird that it's she's so like it takes a lot of asking for her to answer any of the questions that 911 needs to know. And
Yeah.
the reason that there was 3 calls was because they'd called and then officers still hadn't come out. So a family member called and was like, "Hey, why is no one coming out here?" And then finally a third call is like, "Hey, do you guys just not even care?" Like they're like, "We have it on the list like when an officer becomes available." And so that's why it took so long to get an officer out there.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I currently, right this second, I could tell you what your daughter's wearing.
Can you?
Yes, I can.
I think I know what she's wearing.
Yeah. But like, these are things that, you know, are in your head. And also, the, oh, I saw her, I didn't see her. She's the one saying these things. She's the one contradicting her own story. It's not anyone else saying this.
And it's also really common, I just want to point out, that when people are trying to recall the last image of someone that they have, if it is not an image of them being alive, they are going to have a very hard time recalling it because what they're seeing and what they remember, they can't recall that. So they have to make something else up.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to recall and make up something that didn't happen.
Yeah. So, although it hasn't actually been confirmed, I have seen and it's alleged that they possibly live in a 1-bedroom apartment and they share a room. So, do with that what you will.
Yeah, that's a piece that's been going around since about a week after her disappearance. And I think it was pretty heavily in there before we really found out all the details on the charges he was getting for the material on his phone.
Yeah.
And you can tell one of the most reliable comments on it that it is a 1-bedroom is somebody who lives in that apartment complex commenting on that Zoom interview that they did, that they live in a apartment of the same setup and it is a 1-bedroom. So even though that hasn't fully been confirmed, we're gonna have to wait for confirmation on that.
Yeah.
But there has been nothing from Jen at all. Like I looked up there's no mention of her on the internet, like where she is, what she's doing. Some say she's locked down in a mental health institute. Some say she's just hiding away. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. And I know police have talked to some of Madeline's friends and they don't know anything either, unfortunately.
And there's an interview with her dad, her biological dad, that he said that he had never met Stefan. He had just interacted with him on Instagram and wanted to feel him out to see if he got a weird vibe out of him, and he didn't.
Which is crazy, especially if he's been in her life for years. How have
Yeah.
he never met him?
He lived in a different state. So he was in Texas and he drove through the night to come whenever he
Yeah.
found out that Maddie was missing. And he actually got there, I believe it was right after they discovered her body or right before. It was like right around that time.
Yeah.
So he had no idea about the abuse. And
It's
it's coming
wild.
out that no one really did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just so sad that she kept all of that in. And, you know,
Yeah. I mean, she was young. She was 13. And
she had just turned 13 the Friday before.
Her-
Had her 13th birthday party on Sunday, which
her mom didn't go
her
to.
mom didn't go to because she had to work, but she says that she remembers that she came home and they talked about it and she had a wonderful time. Like 13 is a
That is
big one.
a teenager now.
I get like maybe she was with her for her actual like birthday to celebrate
Yeah.
that, but like her party.
I so just my opinion here. She, with her being 13, like if she has been with Stefan for so long, what if is it like normal to her? What if she doesn't see it as abuse? What if she didn't see it as abuse and just thought this was normal and that's why she didn't talk about it to people?
And that could be another
It
thing.
could be. Especially at that age, like that's where a lot of kids start getting groomed.
Yeah.
And
about 8 years old when he came into her life.
So who knows? I hope we get answers soon.
Wait for trial.
Yeah, and pre-trial is set for July 10th and trial is set for August 19th, but it's also expected to be pushed. And after this is happening, the death penalty is on the table and it's possibly being debated.
It is. They have not decided whether or not they are going to go after the death penalty or not.
I think it depends on how bad all of the evidence really is. And like what's already on the plate of evidence is bad. I can only imagine how much crazier it's going to get.
Yeah, and with the police and the press conferences not answering a lot of questions. I mean, it was 16 minutes of we cannot answer this, we cannot answer this. So and they do mention that Jen is still being investigated. Like it is an open investigation. They will not comment on the mom. So I'm taking that as she's being investigated as well.
Oh yeah.
And I'm very interested to see where this all goes.
Absolutely, me too. Me too.
So we're going to keep an eye on both of these investigations as they develop and bring you updates here on our weekly WTFs. Well, bi-weekly WTFs. And also on our social media at Justice Force. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and follow us. Write a little review. It definitely helps.
Please.
And we will see you on Tuesday for a regular episode.
Yeah. Okay. Love you.
Bye.